And then when you add that to the main vocal, it creates a really thick vocal.
When you see my face, you won't see a trace of doubt in my mind.
And this is where things get a little wacky.
You won't see a trace of doubt in my mind. I'm undefined.
How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Behind the Music. Today we're going to be doing a deep dive on my song Undefined. Undefined is actually one of my favorite songs on the entire record, and it's because there's a lot of abstract ideas and also a lot of really interesting chord progressions that I use in the song. So like I said, the story behind the song is a bit abstract because it deals with a lot of internal conflict that I have as an artist. The origins of the song can be traced back to my last few years of college at Berklee College of Music. It mostly stemmed from the fact that I didn't feel like I was good enough to be there or even to be around my peers at the time. Like seriously, I was in class with people that were like second place on The Voice. And I was also in classes with people that were regularly skipping class because they were on world tours. And then you have little old me who was just, a guitar player trying to practice my Steve Vai licks. I know. The moral of the story is don't compare yourself to others. But come on, the only people that preach that advice are the ones who have spent years comparing themselves to others and then have finally reached a level of success where they have 20/20 hindsight. Basically what I'm saying was that I wasn't at a point in my career where I was successful enough or self-confident enough to disregard the success of my peers. And that weighed heavy on me. Basically, Undefined is really just a love letter that I wrote to myself to break through all of the imposter syndrome that I'm constantly experiencing. Now, the early DNA of this song can be traced back to 2018, and all I could find is this really early demo. I know, it's in a completely different key and it's a completely different rhythm, but it all hovers around the same chord progression. And this is a different key, this is an A, but in the original song, it's in G. So it kind of hovers around this G sus chord. Now, after months of noodling around, I finally, land at that riff that is undefined. And then it gets to my favorite part, basically of the entire song, and it's when it gets to this chord here. Now this chord is just a B minor 7 with a few tensions. It's technically a B minor 7 with 13. And it just adds so much flavor to the chord progression that it really creates this feeling of ponderance, is the only way I can put it. Sorry, I said this was pretty abstract.
I call it bold and brand. More like belongs in the trash.
So after going back and forth between that G sus and that B flat minor 7 chord, we finally get to the pre-chorus. And the pre-chorus is where I start to use modal interchange again. If you don't know what modal interchange is, I explained it briefly in my other video about You're Not Insane. So if you haven't checked that out, please go check it out. But TLDR, modal interchange is when you borrow a chord from a different key that shares the same tonic note. In this case, I borrowed a B flat major 7 chord from the scale of G minor. Now this song is in key of G major. B flat major 7, and then this is a C. Now the interesting thing about that second chord is that there's no third in that chord. It's just C, D, A, and G. So it's 1, 5, 7, and 9. And the reason I chose to omit the third in this chord was because I was transitioning back from that G minor chord that I was using, the B flat major 7, and I was transitioning back into G major. And all the notes in this chord exist in both G minor and G major. So it helps bridge the gap from that first chord where I was borrowing from G minor, going back into G major in the chorus. Now the chorus is like an explosion of emotion, and I wanted it to sound like triumph because, the idea of the song is that I'm breaking free from this imposter syndrome thing. So you get this wall of guitar chords like playing on the downbeat with this lead guitar that's just soaring on top. And so this lead guitar part is basically my favorite part of the entire song. It's supposed to sound free, and it's also supposed to help complement the vocal melody. See my face, you will see a trace of doubt in my mind. And so you also get this synth line that is supposed to respond to both the lead guitar and the vocal melody. You will see my face, you will see a trace of doubt in my mind. So what we end up getting is this nice cohesion between the instrumental and the vocals, where sometimes things are calling and responding, and sometimes everything is together. So I'm gonna take the time to show you a little bit of how I mix the vocals. There's so much going on in this session that I don't have time to go through everything, but if you really wanna know about how I mix my songs, just leave me a comment and let me know if that's something that you're interested in looking at. So I wanted the choruses to sound huge. So there's a lot of vocals and there's also a lot of effects. So we have a main vocal here that it's EQ'd and it has some compression on it. But there's nothing special about it.
When you see my face, you won't see a trace of doubt in my mind.
So that's going through both a delay, I use H delay here, and it's also going through a reverb. Honestly, I use more delay than reverb than anything, because reverb tends to create mud, but delay creates the space that you want to hear without giving too much mud. And when I say mud, it doesn't have a lot of buildup in the lower frequencies. And to add thickness to the main vocal, I have a double. And that double is going through a plugin called Microshift, or Little Microshift. And this is really just a phase plugin. So if you hear it by itself,
when you see my face, you won't see a trace of doubt in my mind.
And then when you add that to the main vocal, it creates a really thick vocal.
When you see my face, you won't see a trace of doubt in my mind.
And this is where things get a little wacky. So in the choruses, I have this thing called harmony engine. And so basically what I did was I took a duplicate of the main vocal and I added a harmony engine to it. And I picked the key, which is G major, and it creates harmonies based off of that. Now they sound really robotic, almost like Daft Punk.
When you see my face, you won't see a trace of doubt in my mind.
But when it's buried deep underneath of the main vocals, it doesn't really sound robotic, it just sounds thick and full.
When you see my face,
you get this choir.
You won't see a trace of doubt in my mind. I'm undefined.
And so that's kind of how I created the vocal sound for Undefined. Okay, so that's it for Undefined. Thank you so much for tuning in for this episode of Behind the Music. If you have any questions or want me to elaborate on anything about the songwriting or the mix or the production, leave it in the comments below. I reply to every single comment. And also, if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe and stay tuned for more episodes.